Are you proud to be an American? Apparently not so much lately. Hi, this is Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle now. And Bill, Gallup has a new poll out, which they conducted between May 28th and June 4th, 2020, so just a week or two ago, that shows that American pride, or the pride in being an American, is at its lowest ebb since they started taking this measure in 2001. There are still some 42% of people say they're extremely proud to be an American, and 21% say very proud, so a total of 63% there. And there are only 9% of the people who say they're not at all proud to be an American. But Bill, clearly the numbers are dropping, and I took a couple of measures here that I thought were interesting. This is kind of baseline 2016 versus 2020. Men, 53% at that point said that they were extremely proud to be an American, and now 50% do. But women went from 50% to 34%. Let's just take that one right off the top, Bill. I know that this is a kind of nebulous concept, and we'll drill down on that in a bit. But what does it say to you that men are having a different experience of being an American now than women are, but it was very close back 4 years ago?
Well, just like Black Americans, women have been told that this is a place of unique oppression in the history of the world. And Hillary Clinton's campaign, basically the whole glass ceiling thing, the whole 72 cents on the dollar lie, the whole thing. I have to tell you, I'm sorry to have to say this, but the numbers are considerably better than I thought they'd be when you started. But women are one of those groups that have been aggressively marketed to, and that's the only term for it, for this progressive grievance train. And it seems to be working.
Well, Bill, you would think that it's got to be more than marketing. I mean, after all, the old saying goes in advertising, great advertising can get you to try a product once. But once you know the truth of the product, or what you really experience by, embracing that product, then your view is shaped by that experience itself. And so is it possible that it's more than just marketing?
Well, your analogy is perfectly sound analogy if you lived in a free market system with competitive products. But we don't. We live in a world where that particular product, where the idea of whether women are well off in America or not, is monopolized by the left. There is no competing theory. If there was a voice out there that had the same reach with the same decibel level as everything that the left can throw at this, meaning TV shows, movies, stand-up comedy, late-night comedy, parentheses, if you had a competing product, that competing product would outsell. But look, the car in East Germany for 30 years was a Trabant. It's widely regarded as the worst car ever made, at least one of the worst cars ever made. 3-cylinder, horrible, one-lung piece of crap, and doors would fall off, brand new out of the factory. And that's what you will drive if there's nothing else that you can buy. And this is the narrative that has been told to women, and especially to Black Americans, Latinos as well, that this is a place of unique oppression, and it's the state and the media industrial complex has a monopoly on this message, and they're selling this Trabant to people not because it's a good product, but because it's the only thing available.
Well, Bill, you would think that men, women, whites, blacks, Latinos are all exposed to that same message. If anything, I would guess that men are much more intense consumers of the news media, which you've been aggressively critical of over the years. You would think that men would have a worse opinion, would be less proud to be an American. Or are they looking at this and saying, yeah, this may be a crappy place to be a woman or a non-white person, but I'm okay?
I think just men are more rational than women as a general rule, less prone to emotional arguments. I know that's a stone him attitude today, but I don't think there's much doubt about it. As a general rule on the vast bell curve of life, if you look at how women vote versus how men vote in terms of just historically, take the perception of pride in being an American out of the picture, that particular statement is just plain true.
But has it changed that much in 4 years? I mean, literally, we were looking at 4 years ago with that number where men and women were not that far apart, for example. And in fact, I'll give you the numbers for, they did whites and non-whites. I'm not sure why they didn't have a further breakdown than that. But men and women were at 53 and 50. Whites were at 54 and 45, but now it's at 49 and 24. So whites saying 49%, I'm proud to be an American, extremely proud to be an American. 24% of non-whites. This is just a little 4-year slice. You make it sound like this message suddenly sprung up in the last quadrennium.
It didn't suddenly spring up, but certainly the divisiveness on the part of the left since the election of Donald Trump has been nonstop, full volume, and now they are turning up the volume so loud that the speakers are ripping, and now you get nothing but distortion and noise. The last 4 years have been the 4 years of the Me Too movement. They've been really the main 4 years of the Black Lives Matter movement. All of this stuff about Trump being a racist, a misogynist, and all the rest of this stuff, all of this is blaring day by day. Women, blacks, Latinos, and pretty much everybody else were doing better than they ever had in history economically, but that's not how people answer questions. They don't answer questions with their head. They answer questions with their heart. And there has been an unprecedented, absolutely unbelievable attempt on the part of the news media and the Democratic Party, as if there's a difference between the two anymore, to constantly divide this country and to convince everybody in it that it's the worst place in the world. And it's succeeding. And that's the bad news. I think the good news is that what we've seen since the beginning of the pandemic, and especially since the George Floyd riots, I think whether or not pride in America is going to increase. Look, let's not forget, by the way, that one of the things that happens in these demographics, I don't know what the minimum age for questioning is. I don't know whether they must have some sort of
18
minimum. Okay. So in the last 4 years, a significant number of people who'd been socialized their entire lives to believe that America is a horrible place have become old enough to answer questions like this in a poll. And that's in there too. And this generation has been so robbed of perspective and the natural pride that they're entitled to, that this is growing and continues to grow. And the worst of it is that this generates a tremendous unhappiness. If you're not proud of who you are, if you don't like who you are, and I mean your family, your extended family, your nation, you live in a state of perpetual shame and outrage and anger and guilt. And this is what the left survives on. This is their energy source. And it has to be their energy source because if people are happy, then there's no need to tear everything down and build it all over again. And if you don't need to tear things down, you don't need the left anymore.
Well, you're certainly correct when it comes to young people in the 18 to 29-year-old group. That was the most volatile group, falling from, and I believe we're measuring at this case, extremely proud to be an American is the indicator. That went from 34% in 2016 down to 20% in 2020. The most static group is people over age 65, and that group went from 55 to 53, so it wasn't much of a move at all. However, just below that group, 50 to 64 years old, you and I both in this group. In 2016, we were at 64% extremely proud to be an American, down to 48 now. That's a pretty big dive. What is it about the senior citizens, so to speak, that keeps them from fluctuating over the course of 4 years about how they feel about being an American?
They've lived long enough for life to have beaten the stupid out of them.
But I'm still in the group where the stupid has not yet been beaten out of me.
No, most of it's been beaten out of you. The fact that you're on this show is an indication of that. I'm serious, though. I'm serious. Older people have the perspective. Older people have two different things that are making them prouder to be Americans. Number one, although there are essentially no World War II vets left anymore, virtually everybody in this country who's in that age group is either a son or daughter of a World War II vet or somebody who went through the war and the Depression. And so they were raised with a burning pride in America, as I was and as you were as well. But beyond the initial starting point, there's also a tremendous amount of wisdom that comes with age when you begin to realize here's the entire problem, and we're seeing this with the police force now, and we're seeing it with the Seattle situation and so on, is that when you're older, you begin to understand that it's not fair to measure reality against perfection, that it's not fair to judge anything against a perfect ideal because the perfect ideal doesn't exist. We have all these people protesting police brutality now. And I'm not saying there's not police brutality, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be dealt with, not at all. But what they're comparing police brutality to, and by the way, this whole police brutality thing and all of it's all part of the reasons why these numbers have been lower. But in the real world, you have a certain amount of brutality from people who are overusing their authority. And when you compare it to perfection, it looks awful. But if you try to substitute anything else, then all of a sudden it doesn't look so awful, as we're finding out in Seattle. It's, we don't need the police. Well, okay, there's all these rapes, all these break-ins. Remember when I was a kid in early 70s, there was a bumper sticker that my dad just loved, and it said, if you think the police are pigs, next time you get in trouble, call a hippie. And this is what people are starting to find out now. So older people understand that when you look at a system and you talk about the flaws in the system, you cannot compare the system to an idealized perfect system that doesn't and cannot exist. That can be a goal that you're aiming for, but nobody can get there because we're human beings and we're made out of stuff. If we were angels, we wouldn't need a policeman or government or any of the rest of the stuff, but we're not. So that ability to compare what is going on in the world and look at it not as, gee, this was a terrible thing, as in the case of what happened to George Floyd, but at least older people cannot say, well, gee, that's excusable, but they can say, well, I don't know what the world would look like without police, but I imagine it would be a lot more violent, a lot more people would be choked to death in a world like that. And they can also compare the American situation with other situations abroad and see how they stack up against those. Police forces in Britain and in Scandinavia are far less violent than the American police forces are. But that's because they don't have to be. They're dealing with a nation of exceedingly well-behaved, generally prosperous people. And that was true right up until about 20 or 30 years ago when Swedes and other Scandinavians decided they didn't want to make any more. Swedes will import Swedes. And now they have the problems that we have had as a multicultural society for a long, long time. But you can't measure anything against perfection. And this is the lie that's been told to young people. Was there slavery in America? There was. Were the Indians, did we renege on hundreds of treaties with the Indians? Yes, we did. Was that shameful? It absolutely was. But number one, I didn't do it. And I think old people are old enough to understand that they are not responsible for things that they didn't do. And number two, people like me are old enough and have had enough of an education to understand that, yes, American slavery was terrible. And of all the blacks that were taken out of Africa, anywhere between 9 to 11% came to the United States. The rest of it went to the Caribbean. And so if you have that perspective, that doesn't say that slavery is okay, but it does say that this idea that this is that slavery only existed in America ever. It exists currently today. And all of this stuff adds perspective and makes you look at America as a real place in the real world that has to be compared to other real places in the real world in the present day and throughout history. And you can always strive for improving things to perfection. That's certainly my goal, but I don't expect to get there.
Bill, my final question really wasn't addressed in the story on the Gallup website that I read about the poll, but it's a broader question because as you're asking people whether they're proud, extremely proud, very proud, moderately proud, not at all proud to be an American, it occurs to me, what does it even mean to be proud to be an American? Does it relate to citizenship or geography or a set of ideas? Is it something that you get by birthright or is it something that you earn? What do you think it means when somebody says, I'm proud to be an American?
That's a great question. By the way, my pride in being an American is down. It's not gone. I'm still extremely proud to be an American. If somebody offered me that on the spectrum, that'd be the choice I would take. But there's no question it's been lowered by the likes of Joe Biden saying that his biggest fear is that Donald Trump won't leave the White House if he loses. This kind of thing. Those are Americans speaking. Those are Americans that are doing all the looting. Those are Americans that were on the neck of George Floyd. Those are real things. And on some level, they do lower my pride. Watching these riots lowers my pride in America and my confidence in it too. But it doesn't eliminate it. And in fact, I think in the long run, it'll be good for this country, believe it or not. But pride in America to me means this. My wife was born in Siberia and had never been to the United States before 2016. She's one of the most American people I know. And I can say that for a lot of other immigrants. We've done a lot of shows on Elon Musk lately. He's another classic example. And so I see America as an idea. I see it as an idea that basically is the last and only refuge on the planet for individualists. And so my pride in America is twofold. Number one, I'm proud that I was able to associate myself with an idea that I think has been so spectacularly successful, has generated so much wealth, so much comfort, so much improvements in the standard of living, that has worked so hard to eliminate the stains that have been part of our history as the part of any other country's history. And we have worked like animals in order to do what we can to make the country better. And we've been tremendously successful. These millennials didn't win the battle against racism. Boomers won that battle. The whole cultural battle against racism wasn't won by millennials. It was won by boomers. So I have a pride in just in the fact that I've associated myself with this idea and call it my own and consider myself to be a member of that group. And the second reason I have such pride in being an American is because the things that I believe in have been believed in by generations and generations of people who have done astonishing things that make me both proud of them and ashamed of myself sometimes, and my time as well. I'm very proud to be an American because we landed on the moon. Now you can say, well, geez, Bill, you didn't land on the moon. No, it's true, I didn't. And I didn't have much to do with the Apollo program either. Not when it was on anyway. But I feel like I'm made out of the same stuff as those people. I feel I wanted the chance, and if I'd had the chance, I would have taken it. And so I can connect myself to this history of freedom and justice and the ongoing, never-ending struggle to make it better, which was succeeding spectacularly up until about the election of Barack Obama, who, by the way, could have closed the deal on this, you know. If he had been an American instead of a radical progressive, he could have closed the book on racism. He could have done it. But not only didn't he do it, from the very first months in office, it was clear that his left-wing agenda of dividing the country was going to take precedence over this. Race relations deteriorated significantly in his term. And since Donald Trump has been president, they've gone through the floor, not because of what Trump has done, but because of what the media has told the American people in order to get rid of Orange Man, who's dismantling this mind control state that they've been laboring for 60 years to build now.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is a band of people who are glad, even blessed to be Americans. They are called the members at BillWhittle.com. They are liberty lovers, constitutionalists, and somewhere along that conservative spectrum, you'll find fellowship there when you become a member by going to BillWhittle.com and clicking that big green Become a Member link. For Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks for watching.